Hey, what's up? I'm Guy.
I'm John.
It's our YouTube channel. Subscribe to our channel. Make it one of the last things you do in 2020.
Yep. Check out the podcast. Also below in the description. Subscribe to that as well.
And like this video. And if you're watching this in 2021, start off the year right. All right, John. The 49ers, in a league that, as you told me before we started the podcast, it's just hard to tank in football. And it's really hard to tank with Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh right now. In fact, they refused to do it. They beat the Cardinals on Saturday.
Yeah, I mean, I think we know for a fact, just overall, any team, let alone the Niners, tanking does not exist. Now, it's fun to talk about, and we're going to continue to throw around those words, and losing big picture is the better thing to do always. But no coach, whether you're as good as Kyle Shanahan or whether we think you're as shitty as Adam Gase, ever tries to lose a game. That's a fact. Kyle, they had been losing games with Nick Mullins because Nick Mullins really sucked, right? Not because they were trying to lose. Whether it was the Cowboys game, whether it was the Seattle game, whether it was the Washington, like they were losing because their quarterback was atrocious, not because they were cool with, losing more games and having a crappier record to benefit them in years past. They are not trying to do that. And clearly, like, Kyle is just good enough, right, to just win. I mean, he's playing a team that was 8-6, which controlled their own playoff destiny, which was kind of falling apart, but clearly had a star quarterback, trades for Hopkins. I wouldn't say it was the apple of everyone's eye earlier in the season, but was like a team that hadn't made the playoffs in years, and it looked like they were headed right there. I think we were all, they're going to the playoffs, to now, I mean, we'll see, I guess, what happens in the Packer game. That will affect the Bears game next week. But regardless, like, they no longer control their own destiny. It's very conceivable that the Arizona Cardinals do not make the playoffs. And to me, the Niners would be a major reason why. Because they win that game, they would be in pretty good shape at 9-7, right? Worst case, even if they lose next week. Yeah. That was a devastating loss for the Cardinals. Yeah. Devastating.
Yeah, but part of this is you're talking about, like, who they're playing. Part of it is maybe Cliff Kingsbury, who was not over 500 at Texas Tech, isn't going to be the guy that takes Kyler Murray to the next level, right? Big picture for the 49ers, I think one of the things that will always be the case, it's going to be hard to lose a ton of games with Kyle Shanahan, especially in a division that I think will consistently be really competitive, but everybody, Niners included, just have flaws, right? Like McVay, who we think is a fantastic coach, Niners have had their number. Now, maybe Robert Saleh leaves and things change. We'll see. But as long as Goff is McVay's quarterback, his team will always be something below a top-tier team. As long as Kyler doesn't have a top-tier coach, the Cardinals won't be fully whole. From now in the foreseeable future, the Seahawks quarterback, I think Russ in 2021 right now is scheduled to make like 17 or 18% of Seattle's cap is going to be Russell Wilson's salary, right? So Seattle will always just have to cover up holes. And as long as Russ is elite, they can probably do it. But even this year, you and I don't think they're a true Super Bowl contender. So that's the division that they're in. Everybody is just got these long-term kind of flaws that we'll see what the Cardinals do with Cliff, right? But everyone's got kind of these things they're working through. Now, so will the Niners. They're going to have to replace Robert Saleh, who had a hell of a game on Saturday.
Well,
right?
Cliff's not going anywhere.
A lot of camera
at least,
time.
Well, to me, Cliff's not going anywhere for like at least another year, right?
Yep.
I mean, Kyle, since the beginning of 2019, is 7-1. He's beat McVay 4 times. They're 4-0 against the Rams, and they're 3-1. Obviously, the one loss came opening weekend this year, but he beat him twice last year in tight games. Now, I'm not saying they haven't played him close, and the Rams games have all been relatively close, but he's won. He's 7-1 in those 4 games. Or, I mean, in those 8 games for 2 years. And when you think this year, the Rams right now, are going to go to the playoffs. But the Cardinals, like that loss, they're just in. Like that was, Kyle's just better. Kyle and McVay, we can argue till we're blue in the face. Because I by no means, like, I think Kyle's better. But, like, McVay's really good, too.
And we'll see. Hopefully they coached both teams for the next 15 years. And
you got to judge them over a longer period of time. Because in the short term, like, McVay's going to have more accomplished, right? He also got to the Super Bowl. The Super Bowl he was in was close, right? I mean, he just couldn't score in that Super Bowl. But he got to the Super Bowl. He's going to go to the playoffs for the 3rd time in 4 years. Kyle's been once. Like, part of it,
Goff was his quarterback when he got to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, every fucking year. So it's just, The one thing I think you saw in that game yesterday, I saw Jeff Schwartz tweet this, and he's right, and we've been talking about this for a while. Like, the Niners got to the Super Bowl with pretty average quarterback play. Like, for a large period of that year, Jimmy was average the first half. He got good in the second half, but in the playoffs, he didn't have to do much. Just imagine if Kyle Shanahan got competent quarterback play, because his teams are physical. Just the tone in which the way he drafts, the type of players he likes. It's just going to come down to the quarterback play. And again, Jimmy Garoppolo finished the season in the stands. So they're going to have 2 of the last 3 years, 70% of their games have been started by backup quarterbacks. And he's still like, we'll get into the Raiders. Do you know what? The Raiders have one more win heading into week 17 than the San Francisco 49ers. Think about that. Like, I think it kind of shows you that it's hard for Kyle, even when things suck now, and it couldn't have been any worse. Bosa gone. Kittle missed most of the year. Jimmy, I don't know what notes he's taking. Like, are you writing down Patriot plays for next year? Like, every game that goes by, and I see Jimmy in the stands, I have a hard time thinking Jimmy's back on this team, man. I just do. And then I get rumors, and I don't know this for sure, and the people I know with the Niners are not going to tell me this information. I don't know the right guy in the Niners that has nothing to lose and gives me the good shit. Like, I've heard some things out there that Jimmy could have came back and they've made some business decisions. Like, we know that's not the case with George Kittle, because the business decision on both sides was like, he wants to play. Kyle kind of felt bad in the sense of like, if he wants to play, what am I going to do? Tell him no. And they let him play. Like, again, Jimmy practices and he sits in the stands and watches the games, right? That's just a fact. Like, that's not disputable. Now, how is he 90%? And other players on this team have played with high ankle sprains. I mean, Mostert did it multiple times. Jimmy is not. So I watch this team and I go, Kyle. I mean, we already knew this. Like, Kyle's good enough.
Jimmy did play with
Jimmy fit Kyle.
Jimmy did play with one and got hurt again.
Yeah. So did Mostert.
Jimmy did play with a high ankle sprain and then got hurt again. Yeah. So, but not all high ankle sprains. I mean, you might be right. I'm just saying, like, it's not like he didn't try to play.
No, but my point is he practiced this week. He just didn't play.
Yeah, which is fine. I wouldn't play him. I wouldn't have played Kittle either. Now, Kittle, I think, is probably more. I thought
that and then watched him play. I kind of changed my tune. Like, I get it.
No,
it's not basketball. Be clear. You only get some bites of the apple.
I wouldn't have played him, but I get it. Like, this is part of the reason why Kittle is one of the pillars of your organization. Like, Kittle does represent the culture in large part, right? Like, if you watch that Niner game Saturday, especially if you watch Kittle, who only had like 4 catches, and you didn't know the record, you wouldn't know that this team wasn't playing for anything.
My mindset was kind of that all week, and then after watching the game, I realized, like, yeah, that's a loser mindset. Like, you just play them.
Yeah, I mean, I get why they do it. I got no problem with it. I don't want to debate it. I wouldn't have played him, but it worked out. I hope he gets through week 17, and then it's fine, and, you don't have to consider whether or not you have a loser mindset, because I understand it, right? Like,
if Jimmy wanted to play, if Jimmy said, like, Kittle, I want to play, he would play.
Yeah, you would think so. But again, I don't know what his whatever. I don't know what his health percentage is versus Kittle's either, right?
Yeah, my point is, just from my point of view, watching Jimmy Garoppolo in the stands, watching Kyle Shanahan kick ass with guys just laying it on the line for him, my tone has changed and my educated guess has changed. Like, I have a hard time seeing Jimmy back. And I know there are all these variables and shit. Like, I just have a hard time, man.
Which is fine. But I would say, like, that's a legit take, even if he weren't sitting in the stands, right? He just hasn't been good enough. But his health, even if put it this way, let me rephrase that. If he were sitting in the stands with a cast on his leg, like, if there were no question about whether or not he could play, you should still have the same thought. Like, is this the guy who's hurt now more than he's healthy? And when he's healthy, doesn't look like a top tier quarterback?
Well, he is hurt more than he's healthy. Like,
I know that's what I'm saying. I'm just saying, like, to me, the evaluation about whether or not he could play right now is legit. I'm just saying, even if there was no question about it, if he had a broken leg, you should still reach the same conclusion. Breer wrote something about, he talked to Urban, I guess, a few weeks ago. And this week he turned it into like a bigger thing about whether or not Urban would come back to coach the Jags. He talked to Urban about some other stuff, or maybe it was like even back to last season. Maybe it was before the last draft, actually, that he talked to him. But Urban told him that, like, he's just always been researching just what it takes to succeed, culture, organizations, talking to all the former Ohio State guys. And then he reached a conclusion that basically there are two things that determine whether your organization's good or not. And he calls them culture and criteria. Like the culture that you set, when you walk into a locker room, you can tell the difference between an organization that has its act together and one that doesn't when you just talk to its players. Yeah. And then by criteria, he's talking about like the kinds of players you acquire, just player acquisition.
Yeah.
And I started thinking about it because you brought up Saleh. Like Boise State, who is not a Power 5 organization, and as of the recording of this, they don't have a head coach, but it seems like the reports are it's down to Kellen Moore and Andy Avalos, who one was a star player, right? And then the other, Andy, was their defensive coordinator. Every time Boise's job comes open, and it's now come open multiple times in the last 7-8 years, the only people they even consider are Boise guys.
Yeah.
And they always have multiple options. They have multiple options of guys that we think are good hires. And I started thinking about that in the context, I think the best thing in this offseason Kyle can do from a defensive standpoint if Saleh gets a job, to me, what would be a great representation of the culture is if DeMeco Ryans becomes the defensive coordinator, right? Like
to me that is the move.
Pete's always doing it. Belichick's always doing it. Just promote from within.
Andy does it every time an offensive coordinator leaves. He bumps up the quarterback coach. It's just that is how you build the culture, because your criteria, every once in a while you have to go outside. It's understandable. Belichick has, right? He brings in guys from the outside too. But when you do have the options from within, you've already had the criteria of choosing the right guy on your staff, right? Your criteria, like one of the reports today was Mike Kafka, sleeper head coaching interview. He's the quarterback coach. Well, what happens if Bieniemy becomes a job? Andy's thinking he's going to be the coordinator, right? He moves up. The criteria, he's developed Kafka. He knows what he's looking for. It happened with Doug Peterson. It happened with Matt Nagy. It happened with James Urban before, who's now with Baltimore. That's what you do. That's why, to me, it's really impressive just what Kyle, just that they keep, especially when they got kicked out of fucking the Bay Area. I was thinking about this watching the Chiefs game, fans everywhere. If I went to Santa Clara right now, I could walk into a Target or Costco and it would be fucking slammed. But the Niners, there is a bitterness. I saw some of their players tweeting on Christmas, Merry Christmas to everyone except the Santa Clara. They have gone through something even above and beyond what the rest of the league has gone through. They had to move their facility to another state. We haven't even, you don't talk, you kind of become numb to it after a while, but they're gone. they got booted. That was the Cardinals home game, kind of, right? The Niners have been there for a fucking month.
And nothing changed.
Christmas. Yeah, it's crazy. And it really is wild. Again, I'm not trying to pick on John Gruden, but that they basically are separated by one win. That's fucking insanity this year. That's crazy. It's insane. But it's really not Kyle's is better than Cliff Kingsbury.
The other part of it is he's a really good coach too, right? You watch what they do on offense. Because Urban, one of these quotes from Urban was, it's not whether they run the zone or the stretch or the 3-level passing versus the crossing routes. I know that's what people think it is. And yeah, that's fun. That's intriguing. But that's not why certain teams win. You walk in the locker room and you know why they win. You talk to their players. Everyone, the head coach, the GM, everyone aligned in culture and talent acquisition.
He's right.
So, and that goes back to your point on Kittle. Everyone, if you're going to act like you want to win, you can't do it 75% of the time. You can't do everything to win 95% of the time and then sometimes pull the reins back. Which
exactly.
I understand that take.
That's where I've came around. And I think part of it too is when you factor in the whole thing. You made him come with you to sit in the stands, right. And he's begging you, I don't fucking want to sit next to Jimmy taking fake notes. I don't give a shit. This is stupid.
You got to reward your players who put it on the effort.
And he sees, because when I think going into next year, when I think the heart and soul of this team is really going to be Bosa might come back if he's 100% healthy, just be their best overall player. But it's Fred Warner and it's George Kittle, and you just watch those two guys. Fred Warner's flying around like he's Ray Lewis trying to make the Hall of Fame. It's why is he playing that way? Because that's just the criteria and the culture in which they've set. And George yesterday, and here's why I give Kyle credit, they were smart with it. They would run him a play and then they'd yank him off. They weren't just you ain't playing 50 snaps.
Right. We're not treating.
But they were clearly running some plays, And then George would, it's like, oh shit, George, be careful here. And he's fucking flying through DBs.
Well, he was playing as if he hasn't played in a long time, and he had a lot of pent up.
Like, I'll give you a guy. Like, Arizona, here's who I know 100% is not Arizona's problem. Buda Baker. Like, I bet if you ask Kyle Shanahan and Robert Saleh, like, who's your favorite player on the Cardinals? They'd both be Buda Baker.
Yeah.
Like, to me, he just feels like the Niners would sell their left nut to get that guy on their Like, that's the type of guy they like. You can watch a game and you go, yeah, that's who the Niners like. It's like you can watch a game and be like, God damn, Jamison Crowder. I bet Andy Reid would like that guy. Like, you can just start matching guys up with certain coaches, right? Wide receivers, Bill.
No, you're right. That's the thing. Wait, Bill? Wide receiver?
Well, slot receiver, Belichick.
Oh.
It's like, that little slot wide receiver. Oh, yeah, it's Jarvis Landry. I don't know if Bill would like him.
That's the thing in the NFC that does make it challenging is you've got three pretty established cultures between the Rams. Like, no matter what the Rams' ceiling is, I know what their floor is. Like, their floor is going to be pretty high. Seattle's floor is always going to be high. The Niners' floor is just going to be high because they're it's three cultures.
Your worries are really the Rams and Seattle because, like, Arizona, like, their coach is the worst of the three by a mile. And their quarterback, while he is really talented, he kind of feels a little banged up. By the end of the year, he doesn't quite feel as fast, and he's still fast, but quite as fast as he was earlier this year. Like, he just feels if he was a video game player, if like the first half of the year he was like 95 plus, just in terms of speed and just total power and everything, he'd be like 80 right now.
Yeah, he feels like when you don't have any turbo left.
Yeah, he's just out, and he's still good enough to like run by guys. Honestly, I thought the Niners got a little lucky yesterday that they didn't just constantly call runs for him.
But could you? I mean, that's the other thing, right? You can't survive like that.
But in a must-win game, like I thought they just kind of like Cliff. Just Cliff doesn't know how to win must-win games. He doesn't win must-win games.